be doing the disc brakes on the front of a 1991 Mini Cooper. It's a 1275. I guess it'd be a Rover Mini, but we're gonna do discs and pads with a couple tricks that I use when I'm doing this. Also, if you feel like it, subscribe, like, look in the description. There's some shirts and t-shirt stores and cool stuff in there. Anyways, go through the steps. First thing you'll probably notice is that I have the lug nuts on the studs. After I took the wheel off, I do that so it's easier to pry stuff off, but we'll see that when we're going forward. First thing we're gonna do is gonna take the cotter pin out of that king nut right there. Let's go ahead and do that. Next, we're gonna remove that nut off the end of the axle joint. How it is a 1 5/16 socket. And so the reason I put the lugs on there is so that you can put a pry bar in while you're doing it to hold it from spinning while you're doing the socket. Like that. So I'm gonna leave it on just a little bit to protect the threads when we're doing anything else. The next part that I find is easiest is to remove to loosen the 9/16 bolts while we still have it on the car, so we have some leverage with that pry bar and the lug nuts. So I'll go ahead and start doing that too. So all should be loose when it's time to actually take the disc off. It'll be easier to take off when we switch out the disc themselves, because this top part is not part of the new disc. The next part is to loosen these two 14mm bolts. One's right here and one is right here. But I loosen those so we can get the caliper off. Alright, we're gonna just put it out of the way for a second. Use like a hanger or something to hold that so it doesn't move. Alright, we'll go ahead and remove the kingpin nut right here, or off the axle nut. And this should quite easily slide off. So like I said, these 9/16 they need to be undone to be able to take this top piece off to put the new disc on. And since they're already loose, it should be pretty simple to zip those off right now. And that should just wiggle out. Like that. Set that off to the side. And we'll get the new disc. So the new disc, it comes with some packaging. I always put the packaging down first so that it protects the disc when I'm working on the floor. So all you do is you take the old piece, just make sure that it lines up. Start putting those bolts back in. And I just get them tight with this. I don't actually like wrench them down. I do that with the actual the ratchet. And we'll torque them down once it's on the car, like I do with the lugs and that big pry bar. All right, so for these pads aren't that bad, but since I'm in here and I have pads, I'm gonna put some new ones in there. What I do is, I don't have the tool that separates the pads. So what I do is I open the bleeder valve. I have it hooked up to a thing so it doesn't make a mess. And I just get a screwdriver in there with the old pads and kind of just pry them apart until they get far enough open you can put the new pads in there, and then we just bleed it afterwards. Obviously using the tool that separates it is a better idea, but I don't have that, so that's why we're going to ruin these old pads doing it and then put new pads in. So here we go. Oh, by the way, this is a 7/16 bleeder screw. So we ended up having a little bit of stuff like this. Like I said, this car sat for long. There's some stuff that was stuck back there that made it so we couldn't go all the way back. So we had to use a bigger pry bar to get in there to get that to move back. But now that they're scooted back, we just pull the pads out. This one's, like I said, got a bunch of stuff behind it. There we go. Yeah, see, it's all sorts of nasty in there. So go ahead and we'll put the new pads in and go from there. All right, so now we got the new pads in there. We're just gonna go ahead and put the disc back on and put all the usually you clean all of this. This is just a proof of concept to show you guys. Just clean it up, you know, with some brake cleaning and go from there, but go ahead and put it in. Like I said, we're gonna bleed this at the end anyway, so I'm not worried about, you know, I'm gonna close the bleeder valve right now, and then we'll bleed it at the end when everything's on, and we'll go from there. You slid the disc on, put this on to protect the threads while you're working on everything, but don't tighten it all the way down yet. And then go ahead and put the disc on, or the caliper on. All right, so we got the caliper bolted back on, everything fits. So now we need to torque this. I believe it's 200 foot-pounds. I kind of just do it as hard as I can and go from there. And these just as hard as I can with a ratchet. I'm sure there's some spec for it or whatever, but it seems to work for me when I do it that way. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. And that's why I kept the leg nuts on, so we use the pry bar for. Now that everything's tightened, torqued, last thing is we're going to do is put the cotter pin in. Just go ahead and push that in and bend it over. My GoPro's about to die, but so we just need to bleed the brakes, which you guys can look on videos for that. But that's about it. Just a few little tricks that I use for it, but we'll go ahead and any questions, concerns, leave them in the comments. And like I said, go down to the description, see t-shirts, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff.